for the stream to come on. Hopefully it'll be on soon. Wonderful, wonderful. Hello, coders. Welcome to Friday, 7:32 a.m. British summertime, and is it a fine summer indeed? Very, very hot. Today, I'm going to further on the journey of this FreeCodeCamp course that I'm building, this invoicing application. We're going to be working on the some more database tests. I know we've been working a lot on database tests recently, but I kind of want to get to a point where we can sort of draw a line under it, and then move on to some of the front-endy type stuff. But before we do that, we need to obviously make these tests and make them pass. Last stream, what I did is I created a separate database container for the MySQL tests, which means that we're not interfering now with our development database, which is awesome, which is marvelous. Just bear with me 2 seconds whilst I just set something up on my phone. I should have had this done beforehand. I apologize. Yep, that's cool. Just making sure that's on quiet. So let's go into the code. Code. And let's take a look at what we did yesterday, just to recap. So we created down here, we created a separate DB test container. Which means that we can test via this container and not have to worry about messing up the current container, which is very useful. It's very, very useful because you're not inserting records or tearing down the database by accident, and that's something that we wanted to achieve in the last stream. If I go to the acceptance suite here, we can see that we have the dump, the populate, and the clean. The dump takes a database dump from where are we? In tests in data dump.sql. This is the dump of the whole database that gets reloaded upon every test, and it gets reloaded upon every test because in the acceptance suite we're running the populate equals true and cleanup equals true, which means that for every test we do a cleanup, and before every test we do a populate, which is awesome. So if we have a look at the managers, we can see that this manager, the status manager here, has a save routine. This is the only routine, the save routine, that we've got so far, but I'm hoping to sort of follow the model for the other managers. So this is a status manager. So this takes an entity and then it makes a decision as to whether or not we are going to insert a record or we're going to update a record, depending on whether we have the ID. And then it does a connection open, and then it does a prepare, and then an execute. So this is all the PDO stuff that we did earlier in the week. So this is untested code. This code is untested, and if we go to the tests here, the DB status test, we can see that we don't have. We're just making sure that there are already data in the database, but we're not testing the fact that we can actually create an entity and save that. That is what I want to be focusing on today. I want to be creating a new test that does that. So a new test that instantiates the manager, the status manager. We have to instantiate that with a database connection, and then we can instantiate a new status, and then we pass the status into the save routine, and then we save that, and then the test will be, if we go to the DB test here, the test would be to see this. So I see in database status table, and then the name, and these would be coming from the entity that we've created. And if that works, I've gone and messed that up, sorry, Control Z. If that works, then that becomes our test, and then we can duplicate that for the other managers, for the other tables, and so on and so forth, and then that would become a very nice sort of stable testing ground, I think, for the database. And last night on How to Code Well, I tweeted out that the ideas going forward of this course. So talking about the front end, talking about the forms, talking about the pages, and all of that kind of stuff. So if you haven't done so already, please do follow me on Twitter at How to Code Well, because I give some snippets on that, and also on Instagram as well. I have also been pushing these to YouTube. So a couple of days after these streams go live, I push these out to YouTube, which is the How to Code Well YouTube channel. And I was thinking in retrospect, I was having a look at the channel yesterday afternoon, and I was thinking that I am typecasting myself as a PHP developer, and that's all I do, because for the last few videos, of course, they have just been centered around PHP. Of course, there's a lot more on that channel. There's there's JavaScript, there's Docker, there's Python, there's all sorts of stuff. There's HTML and all of that jazz, plus the podcast. But that gets lost in the noise of these PHP things. So I was kind of a bit downbeat when I saw that, that sort of pigeonholing oneself into that kind of thing. Because, of course, YouTube is, after all, just a big search engine, an algorithm, if you will, of YouTube videos. So the more videos you do of one particular type, the more in that category you become, right? And the less in the other categories you are as well. But I just want to say a big thank you to. I just want to double check his name. It is James Jones, because he sent me a lovely message on YouTube yesterday, saying that he was glad he was subscribed because he was beginning to lose his will, as there was many PHP courses out there for OOP, but none of them show this. I thank you. I will be watching the series like a hawk. Keep up the good work. That is amazing. Thank you very much, John, for that. Sorry, James Jones, because that really does help and inspire and encourage me to continue on, which is what we will be doing. So let's take a look at the database. Let's see. So we have in the acceptance suite, that's what we're running. It's running the database test here. And let's get this wired up. So the question is, do I create a new test in here? Or do I create a new file to do a new test? I think perhaps I might just create a new file just isolate it. What I would like to do first of all, before I do any of this, is actually just create a Git issue. So let's go to the browser quickly, and let's do that, because then I get an issue number. So let's do a new issue, and we're going to call this status database insert test. Database table insert test from entity. I'm not sure why I've got that. Or I just do status table entity test. There we go. That makes sense. Entity test, because then I can test. Oh, oops. So this is test insert and update based on supplied status. Okay, let's just save that, submit that. Okay, and that is issue number 46. So let's go back to the code. Let's build that out. So I'm going to do, whoa, I should be in the terminal here. Let's do a git checkout -b. And this is, what did I call that? That was 46, wasn't it? 46 status. We're just going to call this status test. These are temporary branches. I delete, well, I say temporary, I've still got the old ones here, but I will eventually delete them. They're not actually on the GitHub repos because they get merged in. I can create a pull request and they get merged in. Okay, wonderful. So let's create a new test. So we're going to just copy that. So this is db status entity test. status entity test. Let's just remove all of this stuff. Status entity. We're going to do an insert. Well, I can just do insert test. Here we go. Insert test. So we need to somehow bring out that manager. So let's just throw out some code. So we do manager is equal to new status. Sorry, yeah, new state. Yeah, status manager. This takes the connection. It's a required parameter, so we can do connection is equal to new connection. No, sorry, new DB. Is that it? Yeah, connection. And then we pass connection into here. Okay. Let's just bring that out. Make some room. Okay, so now we've made the connection. We've got the manager. We can now do manager, and we can now do save. Okay. Okay. So what I would like to do is then create the entity, and we'll do this above here. So we have entity is equal to new entity, which is, sorry, new status entity. And then we do entity set name. Let's do this as test. Yeah, test. Let's just call it test for now. Whoops. It doesn't really matter. And then let's set the internal name to be uppercase test. So we haven't added the ID. That's going to be the thing that changes whether or not it is going to be insert or update. So this is going to be an insert. Let's just fiddle with the status entity insert. And then what we do is we save that into here. And then we say IC in database table status name, and we can pull out the fact that we have entity and then get name and then entity get internal name. That is the crux really of that test. Now there's an awful lot of things going on here. There's a lot of dependencies going on. One obviously is that we have a connection, and then the next is that we have the manager, and then we grab the entity. So it's not really ideal. Really, what we should be doing is mocking a couple of these things out. But I think just to make sure that this does just run, I'm just going to use this for now. Yeah, sometimes it's good if you can be aware that there needs to be change. It's good to just keep it as it is, just to test it in its raw state, and then you can look to changing this. So for the reason why I think this is sort of it needs changing is, of course, when I do the next test, which is the update test, we're going to need to instantiate all of these things again, right? So there's no need to instantiate a new connection. There's no need to instantiate a new manager for just the new test. These things could perhaps be injected in, or these things could be done in the before call. I haven't talked about the before call, I don't think, yet. Anything in here happens before the test. Right, so if you need to do any cleanup of the database, if you need to do anything to do with just making sure things are correct, you do that before the test runs. There's also an underscore after that happens after the test has ran as well. But we're just going to run this, so let's hopefully this will run. I don't know if this is going to pass, but hopefully this will run. So let's first of all, before we even faff about with any of this, let's just make sure that we have the table, the containers running. We do. Awesome. I think So I hadn't brought that up, so I'm assuming that these have just been restarted using that restart flag. Just as a side note, if we go to here, because I guess I need to keep everyone in the loop as to these little minor changes that I do in Docker Compose, down here I've got restart always on. Down here, which means that when I start the machine, these are going to restart. Beforehand, this never happened. Beforehand, I would have to bring these containers up. So if if you ask why did the Docker containers not run last time, but they're running this time, it's because of the restart. Okay. Apologies for that. Let's go to here. Let's dive into the container. The container is the web container, isn't it? So let's see if we've got that on my reverse search. Web, yes, we do. So we're diving into the web, and we should be able to run, here we go, database, acceptance, and it's G. What is the group name? It is DB status entity insert. Okay, let's run that. Fingers crossed. Nope, it's failed. Because we are saying that it's inserting that 0 is greater than 0. What have I done? Scroll down. I see in database name, all of that stuff. Okay. So maybe that just didn't save. I see status name, internal name. Okay, so this is interesting. No matching records found for this. I see in database status name test, internal name is test. Interesting. Let's so that's something's obviously not wired up correctly. Let's just run a debug, see if we've got anything coming out. Debug. Yep, I am spelling that right. Debug. There we go. Okay, what's happening? So let's scroll up to the top here. So we disconnect from default, then we connect to the database. We're connecting to host DB test, so that's connected. Awesome, that's connected to that one. And then we aren't running we don't appear to be running the insert. Query count from where? And that's the parameters. Okay. Okay. Let's take this back a couple of steps. First of all, is the save routine actually saving? It's obviously not. But can we get a Boolean as to whether it is or not? I guess first of all, though, what I should do is let's just double check that it's not actually in the database. It could be a miscommunication. So let's come out of this. Let's go into the DB. Oops, sorry. Reverse search DB underscore. Let's just remove all of that. We don't need that yet. That was the MySQL dump command that we did yesterday. We just want to go into bash. I think I've just called this DB test, have I? On the service. Let's just do web. And then change that to DB DB underscore test. I think that's the service name. Yes, okay. So MySQL minus U, root minus P for the password. Put in the password. Use the, I think it was test invoice app. Yep, and then let's do a show tables. Yep, let's do a select all from status from. Okay, so yeah, so it didn't actually get there. However, we did manage to get something running last time where that did go in. So there's obviously something going on here. Let's just see if there's anything in the logs. Let's do an exit of that. where are we? We're on the database container, aren't we? We want to go to the web container. And we want to see if there's anything in the logs. So tail var, is it Apache? No, sorry, logs. Is it Apache? Is it an error log? Anything in there? No, nothing at all. That's weird. Let's see if it's... I think actually the logs go out to standard output. So we can do docker compose logs of that. So we have these going in. So, okay, so these are what looks like access logs. Nothing in here which is crazy. Could not rely. That's just that's all that fine. So that's good, happened. Okay, cool. Okay, so there's nothing there, which is a bit worrying. I mean, when you get these kind of issues and you're unsure at what point the error happened, it's always good to sort of like just make sure that the things that you can have access to, say logs, the actual database itself, just do a spot check on those things first. Nothing is in the logs, which is frustrating. And obviously the table is as it was. So the save routine just didn't work. Let's see. Let's go to the save routine. That isn't actually going to return anything, is it? So let's see if we can actually return something. So that returns a Boolean. Let's open that up. This is the documentation for execute. Let's have a little quick read. Let's bring that out a little bit. Let's just make this a little bit smaller so I can see on the page what this is saying. Okay, so it passes in the parameters of input parameters, which is fine. You cannot bind multiple values to a single parameter. For example, you cannot bind two values, blah, blah, blah. You cannot bind more values than specified. Yep. Okay, so we have true on success and then false on failure. Well, I guess that's the first test, right? So let's go back to here, go into status entity. That would return, so that would go, say has saved or is saved, and that would be like that. And then we would just do or can we do this? Nope, whoops. Just having a look through the documentation of the codeception here. I don't think you can see this on page because it's... I see in Guzzle, I see all of these things. I have headers. I update the database. Yeah, because this is an acceptance test, we don't have the ability to run the assertions, which is annoying because that's what I would like to have done. I would have liked to have ran that to see whether or not that's true or false. Which kind of, to me, means that maybe we should be doing this out of an acceptance test and more as an integration test. An integration test would use the unit. It would be using the unit, although that can be a bit of a faff to sort. Yeah, because you're in an acceptance test, it's sort of it's not working as expected. My suspicion, of course, is because we're running through the acceptance tests. If we bring that back and then remove that, my suspicion is that because it's running the acceptance test, it would be running this suite, and it would be using this database connection. It would be running against this IP. I'm wondering if there is an issue between Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. Yes, there is. I see what's going on here. So the DSN here, right? So we have DB test, we have the test invoice. However, in excuse me, in the connection, which is in here, we're getting the variables host and database. These variables aren't the test variables. These variables, or these environment variables, are not the test variables. Like this, for example, it's not DB test, database test. It's not. So that isn't working. Now, my suspicion is that I've gone and added this database, this item to the wrong database. That's my suspicion. Let's go and see if that's true. If that is, then that's not good. So let's go to the other database. So test MySQL -u root -p test, and then we're going to use invoice app, and then we're going to select all from status. Yeah. Check that out. Yeah. So we're actually inserting into the wrong database. And we're doing that because in the connection up in here, we are running the normal connection. We're not running the test connection, we're running the normal connection. And so in the test, what we're doing in here, we are we're using that connection. We're saving it to the normal database, and then from the test, we're checking the test database based upon the DSN, which is defined in the acceptance suite, which is test. If I change this to remove that from test, it should work. I mean, let's just try that theory out. Let's just remove that. Save this. Let's exit that. Let's exit that. And then we want to go into the web container. And then we want to run that test again, if I can find it. Unknown database, invoice app. Invoice app. Oh, sorry, I need to change that, of course. So I've changed the host and I've changed the database name to be the normal database name. Yeah. So that's inserted a record. That's inserted a record, and now it's checked it. So that was what the test we wanted to do, but we're doing it against the wrong database. So let's just remove that and remove that. Now I'm not sure if there's a way of actually somehow getting this configuration down. One thing we could do is we could in connection we could pass in a variable that's the actual testing environment variable. We could do that. So what we could do is in the test itself, in here, we would have, say, connection. We would have the environment of say test. Yeah, and then that would, or we could just have true or something, or false, and then that would switch the environment that we're using. But it would be so much easier if we could grab hold of the DSN. I'm not sure if there's a way of doing that. I mean, this is YAML files, so that might prove to be tricky. For now, I think what I need to do is I'm going to just put in that variable. So we could just put in test here, and then in the connection up here, where we open it. I'm just sorry. I'm just thinking. I'm thinking. At the best way to do this. I think I'm going to do is production, or is dev, and have that as no is prod, have that as false. See, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that. That just that's a lot of human error there. The question is, where do I set it? Do I set it in the... I could set it in the constructor. Let's have a look at the manager here, status manager. We are injecting that, aren't we? I'm not happy with this, but I can't at the moment think of another way of doing it. Not off the top of my head. Ideally, it would go in the bootstrap, I think. So in public, is it public? Was it kernel? The boot in here. We would be booting it into a specific environment, and we would get our connection from here. Maybe that's probably the best way of doing it. Yeah, maybe that is the best way of doing it. But still, I would need to enforce that somehow from the tests themselves. So in the tests, I would still need to switch it from quote unquote production to test. I think I'm going to sit on that. I think I'm going to sit on that. I don't think that, because this is diverting now from the actual point of this stream, of actually testing the status table. I think I'm just going to put that in as test, and I think we're going to in the connection here, we're going to have env is equal to test, and we're going to have some sort of switch statement. So I could do public function get env get environment, and we could be, so we would have this is all sort of production ready environment stuff. So we could do, we could prefix all of this stuff. So MySQL username. So we could do env is equal to test. And this could become some sort of credentials, creds. And we could put in, say, username is this, and then we could concat that So MySQL username is equal to MySQL username underscore str to upper, whoops, env, right? So this will be MySQL underscore username underscore and then test, all in uppercase. We could do that, same with the password here. Let's just make this a little bit smaller so it all fits on the screen nicely. So that's that one. This is this one. So this is password. And really, I mean, like I said, this should be in the bootstrap of the, the kernel. We shouldn't be making this decision in this class. This is not where the responsibility of this should lie. It should be a case of we are sent the credentials to be connected. This shouldn't be the responsibility of this class to know where those are. But let's just sort this out for this test. So then we have the actual database itself. Okay. So, oops, sorry, that's the database itself, database. Okay, so that's that. And then what we can do is just return that. Okay, so we're returning it based on the credentials. So that returns an array. And really this is get credentials, get creds. So we get the environment variable here, and then we could do creds is equal to this get creds, passing in the env, right? There we go. So that becomes our sort of mechanism of deciding the environment variables based upon what we've got, and we're always going to default it to test, which is cool. So then what we can do here is we can do creds, and this is username, and then we could do this is password. And then this is host. Whoa. And then this is the actual database itself. Cool. And then that creates the DSN string. That makes the connection, and everybody's happy. Okay. Which means now that I'm going to have to play around with the environment variables. So if we go down to the environment variables here, we have MySQL Test, MySQL database. So really what I need to do is copy these out. So we have MySQL password. So let's do the first one. Come on, up. This is going to be development. This is going to be test. So we have MySQL root password underscore test, all uppercase. Now I'm thinking maybe we should be prefixing these rather than suffixing these, because then it makes it a little bit more obvious. So let's do that. Test. And of course this should be dev, not test. And then this should be test. So we have test. Okay, so there's an alteration for anyone who's wondering why their application doesn't work anymore. There is an alteration to the environment variables, so just be warned. So instead of pressing the escape, I press the eject button on the Apple keyboard. Why does the Apple Magic Keyboard have a CD eject button in 2019? That's so bizarre. Okay, so let's do that. Obviously, this isn't a 2019 keyboard. It's I can't remember when I got this Mac. Ages ago, years ago. Anyway, I digress, and time's moving on. So, okay, this is all good. This is obviously test invoice app. This is password test invoice app. Is the why are these the same? That shouldn't be. There we go. There we go. Okay. So let's go back up to the connection here. And get creds. This should now be prefixed rather than suffixed. Like so, just removing all of these redundant, strut uppers, because we are now prefixing rather than suffixing. I prefer it in a prefix manner because it's the first thing you see when you read it, because you read left to right, and so you know exactly that it's test. You don't have to read the whole string and then go, oh yeah, it's test, because it says test on the end, because I had to get to the end. So it's always good to, when you're doing these kind of things, is to put the important thing at the start of the string. The important thing is obviously the environment. Okie dokie. Okay, so let's go to the status manager. Let's bring that out. Not the manager, sorry. This isn't what I want. DB. DB, here we go. This thing here. Okay, so we are now running test. Okay. I can't remember which container I'm in. I think I'm in the I'm in the web container, of course. Yes. So let's just change some of this stuff. Let's just go hello world. All right. Let's see if we can run this. No. MySQL state, no such file or directory. What? No such file or directory. Hello? What does this mean? Why is MySQL returning a no such file or directory PDO? Well, it's obviously going to be something to do with those credentials, right? Passing in test. That's the env. Get creds. Getting the credentials. Building all this stuff out. Database, host, password, username. Username, root, MySQL, and database. Checking the environment variables. I've done them on the dists. I need to do them on the actual environment variable. Ugh, there we go. Save. Right. Let's see if we can run that. No, same error. Same error. See if we can run this with a debug. Okay. So it says it's connected. So, and it's on line 38 of connection. Status manager. Line 38 of connection. 38. Here. So, yeah, it's in here. Obviously. Okay. Username. Just checking password, host, database. Something isn't right. Let's have a look at this. I just want to change the database. That's all I want to do. Method 1 uses... right, okay, let's fix that first because that's just going to make some noise. So let's do a parameter on here. env, and this is a string. A string, not a d-ting, a string. Okay. These streams really should just be called watch Pete break things and then try and mend them in the time allocated. Okay, so we make the connection, and then we run that. So on line, that's running line 57. So if we're looking down the stack trace, so if we do that, line 57, I'm assuming is down here somewhere, in here, where we do the open. Yeah. So this is problematic, isn't it? Because the open here requires that environment variable parameter. So let me think how best to do this. In the connection class, let's hack this up a little bit. Let's do a private env is equal to test. Let's now do a public function constructor passing in env is equal to test. This is a string. And then we do this. env is equal to env. And then what we can do is we don't even need to pass this in anymore, do we? Get creds comes up here. We don't need that. Whoops, because this becomes this env. This env. So, whoops. So now what we need to do, of course, is when we instantiate the connection, we instantiate it with environment. So yeah. So in the DB status here, we don't need to do that because it is test. So if you think about it from the point of view of the bootstrap, and I guess this does work, is that you could have a flag in the bootstrap to tell which environment variable switch to use. So I mean, just to round this off, because I am going into the depth of stuff, but in here what we could do is we could have something, right, that returns the connection. So I could do connection is equal to new db right, and then from there you would put in the environment, an environment variable which has the mode of test or what have you. So for example, we could use the envs to our advantage here. So we could have env, or we could just have mode, or yeah, env is equal to test, right? And then in the in this env, we could have env is equal to dev, right? And then in the connection class in the kernel here, we can then just do env is get env, right? So that becomes our switch. And then the connection I would pass through into the controllers and the managers and so forth from the boot. But we haven't got that. We haven't got that down that far. So let's just remove that. Anyway, let's just revert any change in that file, because I know that file works and I don't want to break it. Revert. There we go. Okay, so here we are defaulting to the test connection, which is the safest thing to do. Let's see if this now does actually do anything. Okay, so it's still saying that there is not a... that is really annoying. It's still saying that there is an issue here. Creds, env, MySQL username. Whoops. Okay, let's just have a look. So we've got db test in the host, which is correct. We have the test name of the database, which is correct. We have the password, and we have the those things. That is correct. So from the point of view of the actual test itself, from the IC in database, from the tester, which is I, that is connected. The problem is this here, this status manager. We instantiate a new connection. I guess what I could do is I could run some unit tests to check this. So let's do a unit test on here. Let's just quickly create a where are we? DB helper DB. No, it's just in SRC. So let's do that. Let's do new directory. We do DB. Let's do new PHP file. Actually, well, just out of ease, let's just copy that. One of those, and then this is it DB test? Is that what I've called it? The actual class name. Let's have a look. DB. No, it's connection. Of course, it's connection. So we refactor, rename. This is connection test. Refactor. Okay. So we don't need any of this stuff. Okay, so we instantiate a new connection. Now, whether or not that can read the environment variables, I'm not too sure. But let's just check. So connection. Can we do a connection get creds? Can we now do a an assertion of those credentials? So can we do this assert the same, and we do creds host, and the host is, if I can find it up here, connection host running off of that, obviously. So let's scroll. I'm looking for my env file. The host is this. Oh wait. I've just spotted the problem. Yeah, the actual credentials are wrong. That's why. Oh, fuck. Crying out loud. Yeah, sorry about that. I'm gonna just let's just leave that up there for now. I'll sort that out in just a minute. But yeah, look, the password here is correct. The database is correct, but the host is wrong. This should be db test. I'm hoping that this is the thing. If it's not, then we'll go back to what I was doing before. So this went. No, this still didn't go as far. Insert all of those things, disconnected from default. Insert test. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did we get 1, 2, 3, 4 last time? Yeah, we did. I was hoping that was a little bit more of an output. Test, root, username, host. Let's just make sure that they are correct compared to what's in the DSN of the acceptance suite. Because we know that these are correct. Woo! And again, I've only changed. Yeah, so that needs to be underscore test. So let's have a look. DB test is the host. Test invoice app is the is that. That looks good to me. Okay. What else could it be? Let's have a look at the acceptance suite. Could it be the username, password, and root? That's fine. That's as it has always been. So there's obviously something going wrong with actually switching of the credentials. So let's continue with the DB unit test. So the host should be DB test. That should be the host name. Why is this complaining? It's complaining because of, whoops. Scroll down. There we go. Okay, I'm not sure this is going to work because I'm not sure if this has access to the environment variables, but we'll see. So this is DB. This is DB default. So we can change that to be running the unit test. -G, boom. Oops, no, I need to actually put in DB default. What have we got? Failed asserting that false is identical to there. So it sees that host as false. Okay. Can we do, is there the ability to do the DB test? Is there the ability to do a get env from here, which I believe is test. I'm not sure if we can from inside a test, but we'll try it anyway. This is, what was the environment variable name? This was scroll. That here. Connection test. Can I do that? I'm not sure I can. Save. So this is one test, one assertion. There's more than one assertion. There's two assertions. What's going on here? Connection DB failed on line 32. Okay, so yeah, this get env isn't running. I'm now not sure if that's because it's just not doing it from within the test, which would explain why this isn't working. Maybe I just can't run environment variables from there. Maybe I need to therefore run the environment variables from here, which would make sense because that's where the config is. I'm just going to do a quick Google and see if there's a way of getting that. So we're going to do codeception environment variables. There must be a way to do all of this. Let's have a look at the browser here. Module parts, helpers. Let's see, can I do a search on this page for environment okay, so you can get that. You can run the environment variables. So you can load them up. That's interesting. Modules can be dynamically configured from environment variables. Parameter storage should be specified in the global codeception.yaml configuration side. Parameters can be loaded from environment vars from YAML, Symfony format, .env Laravel format, or ini, or even PHP files. That's good to know. That's good to know. And we would do it like so. And then this is, I guess, how one would put in the environment variable. Let's say we wanted to specify credentials of cloud testing service. We have loaded source user and source key variables from an environment. Now we are passing their values into the WebDriver. So that's it. So we would use these percentage signs to do that. Interesting. Okay. Okay, so that answers using environment variables from within the test suite itself. Fine, but it doesn't answer how the actual code that the test is running can then utilize environment variables. So what's happening here, of course, if we go back to the code, is that if we go back into here, what's happening is that the connection at this point here, it can't read the environment variables. This is returning false. So a fix, a little dirty hack I could do is I could set these to a default set if there's no credentials available, and that default could be test. So I could do that. That does seem a little hacky. The environment here is what we're putting through. Let's just wire up Codeception to deal with that. So, okay, it's even got an ENs folder. That's pretty interesting. So really what I need to do is somehow inject in the connection from this point on, from here, is actually inject the credentials into this. Yeah, which is tricky business. Okay, for just getting this to work, I think what I'm going to do is up here, I'm going to just do well, that would mean, sorry, I'm thinking aloud here. That would mean hard coding it in, which is bad news. I'm not hard coding my details into this file. That I'm not doing. I refuse to do that. That is horrible and a dirty way of solving this issue. Yeah. I need to somehow make that connection. How do I do that? How do I get this to read the environment variables from there? Because in the in here we just can't get this environment variable. This is just returning false from within the test. That's just returning false. Get env. Yeah, returns false. Returns false if it's not there. Let's just make sure it is there. Let's go to here and go down here into env. Open that up. Yeah, it is there. It does exist. It can't be. Oh wait. I think I've got an idea. This is actually coming through Docker Compose, isn't it? So the environment variables would need to be put through. So I'm thinking maybe what we need to do is yeah. So that would be test. Yeah, I haven't set the environment variables of the Docker container to mimic the environment variables of what we just passed through. There we go. That hopefully would solve it. So that would be dev. Yeah. I wonder if I could just I wonder if so the MySQL database is dev. I wonder if that becomes the switch. Interesting. Okay, I'm thinking about this a little bit more logically, I think. So this would be MySQL host. Dev MySQL host. And I would change that to be dev or test. Yes. Okay, yes. So what I need to do, therefore, is I need to put in the whole environment variable .env file. Yeah. env file is .env. So we don't need this. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Although we do need this, sorry. Copy ZZZZZ, ZZZZZ. This is in here, right? env. Oh, that is passed through. Maybe I need to rebuild the container. That's probably what I need to do. Let's exit this. Let's go and do a down. Because the environment variables had changed on the host machine, but not on the container. Build. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Docker ps-a. They are both up. Let's do web. Okay, let's now do a... I can't get... Because I've taken the container down, I don't have the history. Bin code sep, and then this is run. Let's do unit. Let's make sure that that has actually come through. What was the test name? Do connection test. Test was db default. db default. Yay! Yay! Okay, so yeah, we've got that. Boom! We've got the host and that. We have the environment variable. The environment variable wasn't set in the container; it was only set in the host. What I needed to do is bring the container down and bring it back up again to reset the container environment variables. Look, if I did print R or print env from within here, we should see that we have the environment variables for both the test and the dev. Excellent. So now let's do an acceptance test very quickly. So acceptance -g. Let's see if we can run that test. Where was that test? Here we go. Hello world test. This is db status entity test. Run that. Woohoo! And it's passed. And that test had passed. Wonderful. Awesome news. Yes. So now we have the ability to have different environment variables in the code that corresponds to different databases. Wonderful. I'm so pleased that I managed to get this working, because I was racking my brains as to why these weren't set, and the reason why I clogged onto the environment variables not being added to the container is because I did that connection test knowing that this was the sorry, not that, down here, there we go, knowing that there was an environment variable called test MySQL host, and I wanted to ensure that that was set. And it wasn't set. This was actually returning false. Therefore, I then started thinking, well, the environment variables haven't actually been set in this container. And then I realized that I needed to drop the container and bring it up, because, of course, the environment variables get baked into the container through Docker Compose during the bring them up. So there you go. That was the issue here. Wow, we went around the houses for this one, but I think we managed to do what we set out to achieve, and that was to add a test for the status. Now I just want to double check before I shoot off. I just want to double check a couple of things. Let's just go back into the let's come out of that. Let's go into the db _test container. We'll just go in as bash. MySQL -u root -p test, and let's just use its test _invoice _app. I just want to do a select all from status. And there we go. We can see that that has actually been added. That hello world has been added to the database, and we can see that it's in there. Now, the interesting thing here is that it didn't tear it down. It didn't rebuild the database as I expected. So I might have to fiddle around with the configuration. I was hoping it would just rebuild itself. There's probably something wrong with the acceptance test configuration to do that. Let's just double check. If I did an exit, and then if I came out of that, went into the web container, ran that again, and then exited that container, then went into the test container, went in as MySQL, using that database, and then selecting all from status. So it's removed the last one, but it's kept the first one. So it's what it's done is it's torn it down, but it hasn't removed the one that it's just put in. So just to double check that, let's just do an exit and an exit on this. Let's do hello world 2. Let's bring that back up. Let's go back to here. Let's come out of this. Let's go into the test container. I'm going to just go in as MySQL. It saves a step. Root -p test. Use test invoice app. Select all from status. Yeah, so can you see what it's done is it's added the last one, but it hasn't removed it after the test has been complete. So we are tearing it down, but we're tearing it down before the next test. We're not tearing it down after the test has been completed. And I guess really this is a good thing, because you might want to go into the database and actually have a look and see what had actually changed on that test. So perhaps that is a good thing. Maybe I will leave that. But yeah. That is good. That is good. That is good. I'm going to do a pull on this, a pull request later in the day, because I don't really have time to do it now. But I think we can certainly work on the customer, and then the invoice, and then the invoice item, actually testing that we're adding these things into the database correctly based upon the entities. But yeah, I'm so happy that we managed to get this actually working at this level. Now, before I go, I just want to briefly show you the website that I'm doing for this. This is a Gatsby.js site that will show the course that I'm doing for FreeCodeCamp. This course will be teaching object-oriented programming through the eyes of this invoicing application that we've done. So I have this website that I haven't yet published, but I will be doing so in the next few days, I hope. And this website has all of these streams, these archive streams that I have been putting onto YouTube. And this site, so we'll have all of them. I think we're on 28 at the moment, so I need to add the other 2 that I need to yet publish. But this site is built in Gatsby.js, and I'm hoping to do some videos on Gatsby.js. I'm also going to be doing a video on how I deploy this site, this Gatsby.js site, and I'm deploying it to Hostinger. Hostinger is a sponsor of this stream. Hostinger is a very awesome, affordable, and reliable hosting platform that I've been using. I'm using a bunch of VPSs off of them, which is pretty awesome. And at the moment, there is a deal where you get 82% off your web hosting and a free domain, plus a further 15% off if you use the discount code Peter Fisher. If you use the link hostinger.com/Peter Fisher, and you'll also be supporting the channel, which is awesome, and I thank you very much for doing so. So that is a fantastic deal. Do check them out. That's hostinger.com/Peter Fisher. And also today there's going to be a podcast on How to Code Well FM. So howtocodewell.fm, that is a podcast. I am talking extremely quickly because I need to shoot off and get on with some work. I was going to say some real world work, but this basically is what I do on a daily basis. I'm a freelancer, so this is, the code that I'm writing here is pretty similar to the code that I'm writing for other clients and projects and stuff. It's just, obviously different things. I certainly can't talk about all of these things because of NDAs and all that jazz, but this is what I do on a daily basis. PHP, Python, JavaScript, Docker, day in, day out. This is what I've been doing for several years. I'm going to change that because I don't actually like that image or that one, to be honest. Hey ho, let's put it back to the first one. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this stream. Thank you ever so much for watching, and I will be back probably next week, Tuesday morning, 7:30 British summertime, I hope. I will let you know through the power of Twitter, so do follow me on Twitter, How to Code Well, if you haven't done so already. But anyway, I need to shoot off. Thank you ever so much for watching. Happy coding, everyone. Have a good weekend, and I will see you again soon. Cheers. Goodbye.